Thank you so much, Salah, for joining us today on our flagship webinar. We're extremely pleased to have you. So, for everybody who's listening in here today, a very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We're extremely happy to have you on our flagship webinar series. And the title of this particular series is Conquering KSA's 3PL Market. And we're very pleased to be joined by Mr. Salah. I'll start with a very quick introduction to Mr. Salah. Salah is a executive director at Starlinks, uh, currently managing the entire nationwide coverage for 3PL warehousing services, cold chain logistics, freight and transport, covering ground, air, sea, all of it, and not to forget e-commerce as well. Prior to being in Starlinks, Salah was with Aramex for more than a dozen years, where of course he had a very large portfolio spanning country supply chain as well as global e-commerce solutions, and also now managing the entire Saudi Arabia region. So Salah, thank you so much again for being here with us, and extremely pleased to be speaking with you. Salah, in our recent engagement and conversations with you, we've had a great level of engagement in the last few months. So thanks for taking your time out and being here with us.
Thank you, Abhinav. Thank you for the nice introduction, and it was quite a very interesting engagement that we had in the past few months towards streamlining and automating some parts of our process operations at Starlink.
Absolutely. So Salah, let's get straight into it. And I'll be very intrigued to start posing some of these questions that we have curated for you. So Salah, I'd love to start with a little more of a generic view from you. You've been in the market for many years. You are a known industry leader. Can you tell us what are some of the key trends that you're noticing in the 3PL industry across KSA specifically and also the Middle East and Africa region? I think the audience would also love to understand what you're seeing as some of those great changes that are happening in the 3PL market.
Sure, sure. So it's a very interesting question. There is a lot happening now in the market, in Saudi specifically, in the region, in 3PL and fulfillment and e-commerce services. What we have what we have been seeing for quite a while, there is an increased pressure from our customers being be it the retailers or the e-tailers working with us on adopting technology and automation into our processes. That is mainly driven by the higher expectation that is there on the service levels. So the customers are just raising the bar on the expectation on the service level, on the scalability of their partners. In addition to that, there is a big pressure with more players coming into the market uh, with the general economical situation globally that is happening. There is more pressure on margins for e-commerce players, which is driving that need into having more automation and system-driven operations that allow us to cope with those changes. One very important factor that is also happening now is a lot of e-commerce players are so everybody now in this market works by integrating systems. Manual
Sure,
data exchange is not there anymore.
sure.
So the speed to integrate is a big change or a drive that is happening and enforced on the 3PL players by their customers. With that in mind, there is more adoption into aggregators. With aggregators, you can integrate multiple courier partners, multiple fulfillment partners with just one click and much faster. So we're seeing that marketplaces as well as e-commerce platform developers um, are increasing the speed of the offline SMEs conversion into online. So the first step for any offline SME is to go through a marketplace or a website or a platform developer that can put them online. So e-commerce platform builders as well as marketplaces are driving a lot of the offline businesses into online, specifically on the SME businesses. So that is also increasing the adoption of online and increasing the demand on e-commerce fulfillment as well as last mile fulfillment or last mile deliveries. With We are also seeing larger retailers spinning off some of the logistics services, such as last mile services or fulfillment, and that is to utilize their empty capacity or the vacant capacity that they have during off peaks.
Right.
A major drive that we are seeing also, majority of the retailers that we are seeing are focusing a lot on coming closer to their customers, be it
Right.
an e-commerce seller that is based somewhere in Europe outside the
Sure.
region, or be it local retailers who want to go closer to their customers through micro fulfillment centers or regional fulfillment centers across the kingdom. So with that, there is a lot of focus in the region here and specifically in Saudi Arabia from
Right.
regulators
Right.
to enable and facilitate a lot of the e-commerce regulations that will help in attracting those multinational businesses or even the local sellers into increasing their market share or selling even regionally out of Saudi. We
Salah,
are
this one very interesting point you made about moving closer to the online model, right? Could you talk a little bit about this balance that you're striking at Starlinks, B2B versus B2C? How are you managing to draw this balance today? Because it's very important to stay close to your customers, and yet you're also trying to keep the staple diet, which is what we call as the B2B movement. Is there a fine balance there, or is it an organic growth?
so basically at Starlinks, we are serving both the B2B segment and the B2C segment with our freight and transportation services, with our 3PL service, as well as distribution, which are the B2B service that we are providing in the market. In addition to that, we understand that B2C is unique. We understand that there are specific requirements. So we have
Sure.
the B2C mindset built into our facilities, built into
Sure.
the B2C fulfillment centers and the last mile
Sure.
capability.
Sure.
That the importance of having both types of businesses is it gives you the stability throughout the whole year. We all understand that e-commerce is a very seasonal business.
Right.
It's a business that is very much driven by campaigns or sort of Black Friday, Ramadan peak. So with having the foundation that is the B2B, it helps us weather out those spikes that are the market and the drops in the volumes. One very interesting actually trend that we are seeing a lot also in the market is the eB2B segment. So a lot of the B2B businesses, the FMCG businesses are converting into online as well, which
Sure.
is an area that we are very strong in
True.
and adopting and trying, working on automating it as we go. Um, there is one more trend that we are seeing, which is the expectations from partners now, whether that is a B2B or a B2C customer, the expectations are much higher from their 3PL partners. They are not looking only for a service provider who would give them a service handling in, handling out, and storage. No, they are looking for smart partners which can give them insightful information
Sure.
towards. As an example, we had a very nice success story with one of our partners where we helped them through our technology, so our AI that is built into our technology and WMS and the automation system that we have. We helped them reduce their stock on hand comparing to the volumes of the orders that they are dispatching. And that is a very important factor because everybody now is challenged, whether cash flow challenges or P&L challenges that are there in the
Perfect.
market.
Perfect. No, very helpful, Salah. I think I'm just going to quickly summarize the 3 points, Salah, which I take away as key takeaways. One is the service level. The other is the speed to integration, which is very important, and the third, of course, is movement from offline to online. I think those are the three trends that I've basically noted down and very critical points. Salah, you ended the last comment that you made on some of the challenges, and you used that word. I'm going to just pick on that word organically. When it comes to logistics fulfillment, what is it that you're seeing as some of the challenges, especially from your fulfillment centers to your end customers, and those customers can be B2B or B2C, and any steps that you have taken, innovative or otherwise, that you've taken to try and overcome these challenges?
So the biggest challenge in e-fulfillment specifically is capacity and skilled resources. So basically because it is a very seasonal business, we see a lot of the demand, the high demand increases during the peak
Sure.
periods, which is Ramadan, before Eid, back to school season, National Day campaigns, as well as the White Friday and the Black Friday campaigns that are there. The scale up of that capacity or scaling up your capacity, if it is not an automated automated operation, that
Absolutely.
scale up is very expensive and very hard to get with the skilled resources because you need to
Absolutely.
onboard those resources 1 month before that campaign to train them, to bring them up to a level where you can maintain your quality and the service levels that you're offering to the customer, and then have the spike for a short period of time, and then to offload
Go
it
again.
in a manner that does not affect your P&L. So
True.
that drives our cost higher, and in return, it drives the customer's costs higher, as well as the consistency of the service level and the quality, as well as that capacity build up and the admin part that comes with it. So
Perfect.
in Starlinks, we've realized this problem. We've seen it. We've seen it happening with a lot of the companies in the market, in the region, and other regions as well.
Sure.
And we decided to automate our operations. So we introduced robotics, we introduced automation throughout the process, entire process, allowing us to accommodate those fluctuations in the volumes while maintaining the quality of the service that we are offering to our customers. A very interesting story because very recently we had the back to school season,
Right.
and we managed to scale up our capacity without adding any single resource and without even feeling that there was a spike in the volumes because that source center capacity was all driven by robots. So
Wow.
this is one of the challenges, but there is a solution for it, and we managed to solve it.
Yep. No, it's a lovely point to make. As long as you're focused on automation and driving scalability with the right level of focus, right? Knowing where your troughs and your peaks are, you're saying that we should be able to achieve at no additional cost, or at least keeping the cost to a minimal check. No, fantastic, fantastic points. I loved your point about managing peak scalability. Again, Asala, I want to pick on one more word that you spoke about because it's one of my favorite words, scalability. You see, Locus is in the business of trying to provide scalable solutions to its customers. And one of the things we've noticed is that a lot of our customers are looking for scalability, but they're also faced with a very common dilemma. And the dilemma is basically, do I build a solution for last mile fulfillment, or do I buy a solution? So the build versus buy dilemma when it comes to last mile technology. I'd love to hear your views on what you think is the best decision to take. And of course, it'll change business to business. But I'd love to know from your experience, how do you decide on build versus buy? And please do talk about scalability because scalability becomes a very important aspect of that.
Very good question, Abhinav. So basically, we understand that processes have to drive technology and not the other way around. With that in mind, we are selecting, or we decided that we will go with the systems that best serve our processes, which fulfill our requirements. Uh, whether there is an off the shelf or a system ready in the market that can do that, then we go for it. If there is no system that allows us to do that, we go for the in-house solution. However, as part of that direction that we adopted, one important factor is that all the integrations that happen between our systems or with the touch points that we have with our customers are all built in-house. So this allows us to do that selection. What can we buy, or what we find available in the market serving our requirements and our needs, and driving that process or fulfilling the process requirements,
Okay,
and what do we need to build in-house in order to fulfill our requirements. So one size fits all approach for technology is not there. We understand that.
absolutely.
Therefore, we want to have the best in class serving each process or the divisions that we have across the organization.
So, Salah, if I can use the famous phrase, process driving technology and not technology driving process, is that how you'd put it too?
Yes, definitely.
Awesome.
Definitely.
Awesome. Great, Salah. I think very, very insightful so far. And I think I do like your approach on saying that we first look at what is required and then we take that call. It's not it's not the other way around. What can we do and then what can retrospectively fit the market? I think I love the approach that you take there. And that's I do hope all the people listening on this call are also thinking on the same lines because there are in-house capabilities which you can build and there are some which will be difficult to build. So it's always a question of what you can versus what you can't, what's feasible versus what is not feasible. Salah, on that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the other topics that sort of plagues this industry a lot, which is change management, because you spoke about, in-house versus, buying externally. But one thing that is not a cookie cutter, okay, is change management. Change management in driving transformation. We have seen projects just merely on the back of change management both succeed and fail. What do you see as the criticality of change management in successful implementation? Any past examples would be great if you could share.
So change management is basically what makes or breaks any transformation. The most important starting point is to have the right people, the right expertise within your team who would be driving that change management. Having the requirements scoped very properly and accurately, and making sure that there is a buy-in from all the stakeholders who would be also part of that change management process. From my experience, it was always better to create a parallel team
Okay.
that will be driving that transformation agenda, while you
Okay.
have the core team working on the day-to-day operations, so that we don't have disruption, or even the
Right.
change management process is not biased by day-to-day issues that are faced there. But it's
Absolutely.
very important that it's driven bottom up. It's the requirements should come from the operations, from the process, from the floor, should be scoped properly, and should be managed with that transformational mindset going towards the success of that project.
Wonderful. And Salah, quick comment on the other side of change management. So you spoke very well about how change management is impacted positively and should be impacted well by the internal organization. What is the vendor's role, Salah, in change management? The vendors also carry a responsibility. Where do you think they can support you in driving this change management successfully?
Yeah, vendor's role is very important. We've experienced that with Locus, so we've seen how we were driving that change. So basically, it starts with the scoping of the
Right.
requirements, with mapping them on the system, with identifying what is the scope that actually we're going to address for that transformational journey.
Sure.
Then following that, there is the training. Training is a very important milestone towards achieving that change management
Absolutely.
transformation within the organization. Validating or the validation of adoption
Right.
of the functionalities. We've known many stories, and we've lived those experiences where we start with a system, we buy that system, and then we only use 10% of the functionalities that are there. Vendors and our partners are the ones who can keep validating that the adoption is happening, and supporting the internal teams into um, adopting the functionality as per the original plan or the original score, or even if there are any tweaks that are required post the implementation to improve the adoption factor. And then
Sure.
there is the governance, the regular governance of the implementation of the
Mm.
systems, of the KPIs and the SLAs that were committed. So vendors do play a very important role, and we like to call them partners in that implementation process and change.
I think I think the last word said it all, Salah. We are truly expected to be partners, and we are truly partners when it comes to implementation. Because I think, I mean, I use a phrase very commonly these days, and I say that it takes two hands to clap. And I think unless the vendor and the customer decide to make it a success, it'll never be a success, right? Which is why we are truly partners in your journey and not just vendors. So the word vendors actually needs to sort of become redundant over a period of time and really
Yeah,
be
at
called
some point, your vendors, your suppliers become your partners, become an integral
absolutely.
part of the organization itself.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that we notice as sort of with our long-term partners in this industry is that we literally become a part of their furniture. We're spending so much time in their organization, we start identifying with their culture a lot more than we identify with our own culture. Salah, if you don't mind, I'm just going to ask you one slightly different question on culture. How important is, we spoke about change, right? How important is culture adaptation also for a partner like us? I mean, how much do you think it plays an important role in being able to make your engagement successful?
It does. So I was I met a lady in the UK and she told me that people buy people. So people do really like to buy people who are same as they are in terms of culture, in terms of the forward thinking, the mindset, the improvement mindset, the can-do attitude. So those values that any organization has is basically what it would look for in its partners or in its vendors. So that culture adaptation, the core of it, or on a high level, it will be very similar. There are very small culture adaptation parts that need to be done maybe to fit that culture, but in principle, it's it all comes from the beginning, starts from the beginning.
Amazing, amazing. And I'll I've not the first time I've come across the phrase that people buy from people. So I think I totally understand where you're coming from. But Sarah, just thank you so much. I think I'm going to give probably one last question to you just to ensure that the people listening in on this webinar also take away something which is beneficial to them on their growth journey as either as aspirational 3PL organizations or as existing 3PL organizations. What would be your advice to other 3PL organizations who are in different stages of their growth, right? So some of them could be in a startup phase, some of them could be sort of medium maturity, others could basically be extremely mature and they're scaling today. But if you have to give bucketed advice to each of these, one in a startup phase, one in a growth phase, and one in a scaled up phase, what would that one advice be for them? And would love to hear if you have any examples to draw from as well.
I, I, I believe the most important advice would be to select the right service or solution that they want to solve, the right problem to solve in the market,
Sure.
and focus on solving that problem. So not going after every service that is there in the market, but take an area, focus on it, solve it, and solve a problem in that area. And there are plenty of problems, by the way, in the logistics industry. So it's identifying that product, the process, identifying technology and adopting technology or building the technology that is scalable for them, that allows them to customize it as they need in the future and to scale while the scale accommodates their growth demands.
Sure.
And having that clear strategy of where they are today and where they aim to be later on, and their expansion plan within, whether it is geographic or whether it is a service offering.
Salah, last question from my side. It's one of my favorite ones. Uh, how difficult is it to convince your CEO on the ROI of a last mile technology of what it can give? 10 being the hardest and one being the easiest.
As long as the ROI is clear
Okay.
and can be defended, I think it's very easy to convince any business owner, any CEO on the ROI of any technology, actually, not only the last mile technology. But the thing that is actually challenging is justifying that investment from a functionality and a process perspective. So many of the last mile systems that we see have route optimization, route planning, capacity planning. Is it post buying that system? Is it adopted? We go back to the point of adoption. Is it adopted? Is
Right.
it used? Do we have the data that is required? Can we capture the data that is required in terms of addresses, in terms of fleet capacities? Can we capture the data that is required or not? So the ROI in theory can be very positive and can be adopted or can be supported by decision makers. However, in reality, it could be the implementation part that makes the IOR negative. And I believe that that ROI should be practically validated as post the implementation itself.
Sure. I think that was a great answer because I think your plain and simple truth is that make your business case clear and no CEO should be hard to convince. That's how
Yes.
I would conclude that. Thank you, Salah. I think it's been very insightful, very interesting. And I just wanted to say that we actually started with talking a little about key trends that you're seeing across the 3PL market. We went down to some challenges. Then we spoke about balancing out B2B and B2C and moving online, how you need to move closer to your customer. And then from there, some brilliant views on build versus buy, how you basically make the choice, basis what is really available in house versus what customers require. So it's really customers driving the decision rather and process driving the decision, and all of that basically supported in the back end for successful implementation by change management, and how having the right people and the right technology and the right data to support that is important, both from a vendor standpoint and an internal standpoint. And of course, your advice on how everyone should have a focus area. If you're starting the business of 3PL or you're in the business, focus is very important, not spreading yourself out too thin, and then starting with a very clear vision. So all brilliant points. I think personally feel very enriched to have been on this webinar with you. Thank you again, Salah. Thanks so much for being here with us today.
Likewise, Abhinav, it's always pleasure talking to you and meeting you, and thank you for uh, giving me the opportunity to speak here on this webinar.
Wonderful. Thank you, Salah. Until the next session with you. Hope you have a great day and speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye bye.